Well, welcome. We have 5 different countries here where everything from 8 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. I have to say, Michelle and Dee, you have more perseverance than I do. I'd probably be in bed by now. So thank you so much for joining us. So we have Australia, Canada, the US, Bermuda, and France on our call today, our mighty group of 9 so far. So the plan for today is to do a little bit of a check-in. We have an invitation if there's someone who wants to put forth a something that they're working on worldview related that they'd like to have some feedback on. We'd be happy to do that. If we don't have that, then Stefan, Jerry, Nancy, and I had talked about engaging a little worldview exploration together. And we can talk a little bit about how we continue to build and strengthen support for this community of practice. And that's, I think, mostly what we had in our plan. We are scheduled for 2 hours, but we don't have to go for 2 hours. As we know from open space, whenever it's over, it's over. So we'll see how we make out. And if people need to come and go, that is fine as well. And I think with that, probably not everybody here on this call right now knows each other. So I think maybe our check-in could be just as simple as who are you, where are you, and any additional thing you might want to say to start. And I know all of you, but I'm here in Bedford, Nova Scotia, where thankfully it has been raining for days. It will continue to rain for days, and it's a welcome relief, even if it's a dull, dreary day outside. It's better than the fires that have been lighting up our landscape for over a week now.
Hello, everyone. Jerry from Apple Valley, Minnesota, where it's allergy season in our springtime here. And we're in the midst of a long stretch of very hot weather, several weeks of it with no rain, but we don't have any fires. So that's good. But we do have mosquitoes, massive amount of mosquitoes. Not where I live, but in the more densely urban areas, it's a real problem. My big battle is garden pests that are eating up my flowers, and so death to all rabbits and voles. But other than that, I'm delighted to see everybody here and be in this conversation.
Good morning, afternoon, evening from Bermuda. I am Carrie. I'm going to introduce myself a little differently. I am a passionate, loving nurturer to myself, my family and friends, and my community. And in that, I'm balanced for my overall health and well-being because I'm worth it. And I'm choosing to introduce myself that way because I am in a space where I am working to find that balance as I enter a new phase in my professional journey, and balance went out the window. So I am, that's a way for me to both introduce myself and who I intend to be, but also to remind myself who I chose to be when I developed that. And that's my battle, is the balance. That's my battle right now, is finding the balance. I've got all the rain that Jerry doesn't have. You can keep the mosquitoes. And I'm not going to let AJ know anything about what you just said about bunnies, because she will not be happy with Uncle Jerry. That's me.
Hello, my name is Victoria and I hail from Minnesota, land of lakes and Jerry. I am really appreciative of that intention with which you introduced yourself, Carrie, and I just applaud you in that journey. Yeah. There is clouds in the sky, but no rain here. It's still very hot and up here in West Central Minnesota. I'm excited to be here with you all.
Thanks, Victoria. I'll go next. I'm not going to give you a weather report because it's pitch black outside here at 11, just after, or 10 past 11. I'm coming to you from Tunnerung country in regional Victoria, Australia. And yeah, look, I'm just happy that able to join this call. Much easier for me to do 11 p.m. at night than 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. in the morning. As I can see Dee nodding, we're both a bit the same. Like, it's much easier to stay up than get up. So yeah, just happy to be reconnecting with the group. It just seems like it's been so long. So I'm looking forward to filling my bucket tonight before I go to bed. Thanks, everyone.
I'll speak from somewhere in the middle. I'm in Paris, in France. So it's just middle of the afternoon. It's okay here. Nothing special to report. It's a mix of difficult and easier tasks, situations, challenges. All of them learning opportunities. So I'm doing well, and I'm glad to be here today.
I'll go next. My name is Stéphane. I'm also in France, a little more south of where Lorraine is sitting. So I'm near Avignon. And since we are talking about weather, I have to say that it's a beautiful day here, nice and sunny. And we've been lucky to have some rain every other day for the last 2-3 weeks, which is really welcome since it's been very dry for the last 4 or 5 months. And I just, I spent a week last week with Art of Hosting, or to be more precise, Art of Participatory Leadership close to Paris in Reims. And it was fantastic to introduce once more Worldview Intelligence to the AOH community. That's it for me for now.
I'll go. It is really lovely to see the faces of people we know and new friends we've just met. And Stéphane and Carrie, when I saw your face, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. This is how we go. It was really, really lovely to kind of have that familiarity. Yeah, so it is it's night here, but Michelle and I are both night owls. And I think there's something about Worldview Intelligence that we just kind of went, yeah, let's make sure we're there, you know, from so many other offerings that kind of come out of hosting or complexity or our work in asset-based community development. Like, there's so many different tangents you could go in, and this is one that Michelle and I have talked about. We just keep getting drawn back into to be part of this, you know. And so I know that there's something that we have to keep holding on to this thread here. And it is winter here at the moment, and I'm loving it. I'm in short sleeves. Michelle's probably got 2 jumpers on, 2 jackets, scarves. She hasn't got a beanie, so she does not like the cold, and I absolutely love it. So we're off to Darwin next week, which is top end of Australia. So think like Mexico, I'm going to sweat and hate it, and Michelle's going to love it. So yeah, we're doing an international conference up there. So yeah, really glad to kind of reconnect and be here and to see what else might emerge. And I did meet with a colleague, a mutual colleague last Friday of Kathy Jerry's and mine, who lives near me. And we're going to be talking about how we can get them out here to Australia next year. So that'll be exciting too. Thank you.
I think I'm in the last one. I am Christine, and I am sitting in my office in the close vicinity of Paris in France. It's been very hot over the last few days, and I find it personally very disturbing, and it generates a lot of eco-anxiety in me. Which is the opportunity to do internal work. So I am coming with this very busy period. And this morning, I was thinking about our upcoming gathering today. And I was working on a design using Theory U. And I was thinking about, you know, the co-sensing, which obviously is very, it's a worldview exercise. And I'm coming with presencing, you know, the conditions for presencing. And this is with me, and this is germinating at the moment for this workshop I'm working on. So it's very nice to air this with you. And I'm very happy to meet you all and to speak English, really.
Oh, thank you. I am just really literally beaming with all of your faces here in front of me. And just so good to see each and every one of you. Lorraine, would you like to take a minute and just talk about your book?
Thanks for the advertisement.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's a big topic these days. So I've been researching and interviewing organizations where more people participate in the decisions that they have to roll out. And so I interviewed 19 different people. I'm talking about more than 30 different organizations in 15 countries, including Australia, not the Bermudas, I'm sorry, the US, France, China, and a few others. And yeah, it's a great adventure because I think that there's a lot to get done in ways to get more people to be active in making decisions for their organization. And so I approach it with 3 different levels, focusing on the teams, how the teams will fare better if they are listened to and if they can participate. And then the sustainability of the organization is a second impact. And the third impact is very simply the entire planet, because we all have an impact on everything around us. So that's the topic of my book. Thank you, Kathy, for giving me the chance to talk about it.
Oh, you're welcome. And Dee just asked for a link to the book.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah, I will do that.
yeah, and it's a great, Jerry and I were both a reader of a chapter, and it's just a great contribution to a body of work that supports all the work that we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. All right. Jerry and Stefan and I didn't really talk about who's hosting what portion of this. We're kind of jumping in as we go. So since I jumped in to begin us, I would invite either one of them to step up next for the next portion of our agenda. Which would be intervisioning.
Well, I think before that, we were just going to see what people might be doing with Worldview Intelligence. If there's any experimenting going on out there, anybody have any short, brief story to tell about how you might be using Worldview Intelligence at the moment? And then from there, maybe I know Lorraine had mentioned in an email, she has something she might want to talk about, and maybe Christine does also. Stefan could maybe host that, but so the question is out there is, are there any little stories anyone wants to share of a recent experience with Worldview Intelligence?
I think
Well-
this is probably more of what might be happening with Worldview Intelligence. One of my clients is the Ministry of Health in Bermuda. And they are in the process at the phase one, I would say, of implementing universal health coverage and overall health reform. And in a meeting that I had with they and one of our key stakeholders, the Health Council, which is the regulator, they're getting ready to stand up some legislation that has been on the books since 2004. Successive governments have elected not to implement this portion of the act, which actually gives the Health Council the legal authority to regulate the health service providers. And there's always been pushback because our health services providers have not been regulated, and who wants to be regulated when you haven't had to be? So they talked, their intention was, because of the acrimonial experiences they've had in the past, when it came to the required stakeholder engagement, to have, their words literally were, we're not doing a town hall just to be stood up and have fingers wagging at us and be yelled at for 2 hours. So we're just it's gonna be written. We'll just put out what we're gonna do and invite people to do written feedback. And the juxtaposition on that was that in this overall health reform for 2 years, they've been talking about authentic and transparent stakeholder engagement. So it was just an opportunity to talk about that, and where we actually landed was creating an opportunity to co-create what that would look like. And then an evolution into Jerry, Kathy, and I actually facilitating and leading the stakeholder engagement. So don't know what it's going to look like, but certainly we know that that there are a variety of worldviews that we need to bring together, not to decide if it's happening, but it's going to happen. And so more of being a part of what it looks like. So we'll be bringing some worldview into that work, which is very exciting for me, because while, every 2 or 3 years, maybe, notwithstanding COVID, we've had the opportunity to bring this in. I haven't been able to have it gain momentum in Bermuda. And I actually really believe that this might just be the opportunity for my community to start to have the people, that the decision makers that matter, that do a lot of stakeholder engagement, a chance to see the power of this work, so that we can actually bring it to our community, and we can stop debating and talking at each other, and actually, talk with and work with each other through, all of the things that we're navigating socially and economically.
Thanks, Carrie. Appreciate that, and we look forward to that work. I'll share a quick story and then invite someone else to go. Kathy and I just completed a little experiment, and those of you in Australia or France or elsewhere may want to do the same experiment, in that we hosted 3 conversations, 3 weeks in a row at the same time, same day, for 1 hour. They were free and they were open conversations. The first one was on the impact of artificial intelligence on our global worldview. The second was artificial intelligence on our professional worldview. And the third, artificial intelligence on our personal worldviews. And we had fantastic conversations with all 3 of them. the first one had several countries and quite a group of people. The next ones were a little smaller, but the conversations were fantastic. And so we're thinking we'll do this experiment again, maybe in September, where we'll just do a series of 3 conversations around something that's in a live topic, and how it might connect to our worldviews and where they are. And I'll just conclude, and Kathy may want to add a little bit too, but I found, surprisingly, in a way, the conversation, the third one about impact of artificial intelligence on my personal worldview, the one that was the most eye-opening for me, because I really paused and gave it some thought. And as someone who, I'm 72, so I'm looking at a life in a kind of a different way than if I was 22. And it really impacted my thinking about what's my next 20 years or 30 years look like. What does artificial intelligence mean for my life going forward? We had some really wonderful conversations with people in a variety of circumstances, and how artificial intelligence could move from a problem-solving tool to a liberating tool. How could it liberate what's within us? So we had our friend Myrna, who's quadriplegic. How does artificial intelligence make her life more independent and free and rich? Or how could it create the possibilities for me to stay in my home longer, and those things? So it was a wonderful experiment with great conversations. So peace back.
Yeah, I would just note that Victoria was there for all 3 calls with us. And I think Carrie was there for one, and Lorraine was there for one. And Tathra joined all 3 of the calls as well.
It was, for me, it was really a generative experience, because I just really hadn't taken the time prior to that, those engagements, to think about, even to consider what impacts could possibly be with artificial intelligence, and then thinking about how it might apply to me, and how my perspective and my worldviews and things of that nature. I'm still processing, I'll be quite honest, those conversations, and I have yet to determine how I will engage in an intentional way. I mean, I do have Alexa, so I already have AI in my home, but like, how do I become more intentional about deploying and leveraging this in a way that is going to be positively impactful and equitable? It's really what I'm germinating on.
Were those workshops, I'm sorry, were
No,
those
go ahead.
workshops recorded? Were those discussions recorded? Are you posting those, or are they just recorded for your personal?
They were recorded. I'm happy to share them with this group. Mostly the first conversation in the day was recorded because there were more people. So yeah, we weren't really intending to publicly put them out there, but there's no reason why people in this group couldn't access it. So I'll share the links in a post
Great.
now.
Thank you. Sorry, Stefan.
Yeah, I was just going to go next to talk a little more about last week and the AOPL. Well, first of all, we now have two pagers in the workbook, in the AOH workbook. So it's there to stay. And what we decided with the hosting team is that we're going to talk about worldview at the end of the first morning of the 3 days event, because we felt that it was I mean, absolutely necessary to talk about those worldviews to create, favorable conditions for discussions to come. And so we had an hour and 15 minutes, and the two persons who hosted that 1 hour and 15 minutes, they decided to do it, when we all meet in a circle, and then they just pronounce a number of statements, and if it's a yes, you move one step forward. If it's a yes again, you stay where you are, and a no, you go back to your original place. And with being really aware of what's happening in the circle, who's taking that step, who's not, depending on the statements. And then there were, after that, 2-3 examples of discussions and different worldviews around, for example, circle practice, which was quite interesting to, for the people around the room to understand, how worldviews are really acting up all the time on us. And then they finished the exploration with a timeline, and people, would put a post-it on the timeline on historical events that had an impact on them, a book or film that had an impact on them, and some kind of a person in their life that had an impact. And then there was open discussions on that for like 20-25 minutes. And really, it was really nice because I really felt that people got it, that it was important to, right at the beginning of these 3 days, to open up the worldviews as much as possible in order to get as much as they could from other people's perspective. And I think it's really hit them with the importance of the yes and instead of yes but, and opening up, just understanding that from where I come from where you come from, you are right. With your worldviews are completely welcome and have their place. And it led to really interesting conversations throughout the 3 days. So worldviews was, it's kind of we came back to it again and again. So that was real nice.
I love that, Stefan. That is exactly how we began to discover the influence and impact of worldviews, because we would introduce it really early in a 3-day art of hosting training, and people would talk about worldviews throughout the training. So that was the first clue for us that there was something of importance and value here for that. So I love hearing that story. Thank you so much.
I'd like to just share something that I'm noticing hearing these stories. That with our, for those of you who don't know our organization, the Yeater Institute, well, this time last month, we were 70 people in Australia in a horizontal platform, no bosses. And this month we're 55 for lots of messy reasons, but we've always used, well, not always, mostly at least once a year in our annual gatherings, and we have 2, so that's biannual. We would have something around Worldview Intelligence, even if it was a small activity or a something, or a discussion, something to kind of get people thinking, talking in breakout rooms or whatever it might be. And what I'm noticing, and I think Micelle will probably agree, is the discussions that we do have, how they've kind of permeated through the organization in the responses that we're now hearing from what I'm calling Messy May, that when there, and it was really quite ugly and horrible and what happened, but a lot of our members were saying, hang on a second, what was going on that we weren't noticing that brought us here? how did we get to this point that there was 14 unsettled, unhappy people that we didn't notice? So, and that then became kind of the base of the conversations that we all decided very early on that we're going to go high. You know, we will stay high, we'll have big conversations, be transparent, and think about, you know, what does the future look like for all of us now? We've got this opportunity to recreate. So yeah, hearing the kind of stories from others is, I'm just feeling even more kind of grateful and proud of the members that we do have who stayed, because everyone got approached to leave except for maybe Micelle and me, but maybe another couple. But yeah, just feel really good that this has been groundwork we've done for years around these conversations, and let's deep dive into these kind of discussions. So yeah, it's really heartening to hear this and giving me more ideas of, you know, why Tathra and I met last Friday, why we're talking about next year with you guys. Like it's kind of building that momentum towards it. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, Stefan, do you want to host a little what we call intervisioning and see if someone's got a project they're working on, more than one. It does not have to be just a single project, but something you might like to share with us, and yeah.
Sure. Well, exactly what Jerry just said. Does anyone have a topic or a situation or maybe a project that you would want to share with us, and that you could benefit from the inputs of the team here, from the team?
I do.
Okay, Lorraine, is there?
Do you want
someone else?
to identify who, and then we, okay,
Yeah.
Okay, so I won't say more.
Someone else other than Lorraine?
I think like what I was just talking about, Stefan, something that like where's our kind of starting point now? You know, that now that we've got this, and we've got smaller teams within the 55 of us who are left, and what that looks like, you know, how or what, you know, can we share with others that is gentle and compassionate and doesn't create too much on people's busy workloads, but can be useful and together and collaborative. And now I'll just keep going on with keywords, but yes, something about team and organization.
Okay. So we have Dee and Lorraine. How much time did we should we use for this? Kathy and Jerry, what maybe a half an hour? Could we do that? Yeah, 15 and 15. Let's see,
Yeah.
and then if need be, we'll take more time. But okay, then Lorraine, if it's okay, we'll start with you, and maybe you can give us a bit of some background and what is where you need help.
So I'm about to work with a leadership team around culture and talent for an international company. And so it's 9 people in that team, 8 of which have been around for a while, most of them. 1 joining with a much more dynamic and operational approach. And I don't know yet because I haven't met everyone and I'm just starting the conversation. But the idea is to talk or to work on trust in the team and efficiency. And I'm thinking that I definitely will, whether I call it that way or not, I will definitely use Worldview Intelligence at some point. So I thought it could be a way for everyone to discuss if you feel like it.
Maybe we can go with maybe a few questions on, to clarify what the situation that Lorraine just mentioned.
Lorraine, is it specifically around building, strengthening teamwork? Like, what is their ask of you?
So, well, they do have that day together. They do that once a year. And this year, so to give you a little bit of context before I answer your question, the first person I talked to is someone I've worked with before. He was in other teams, and he's the one who just joined that team a few months ago. And so he called me up and said, I thought that maybe you could help us. And he gave me his description of the different people on the team. And then he said, if you're available and you're okay, I'll talk to my boss. And so I met the boss, and she told me what she was seeing in the team and what she was expecting. And at the end of the conversation, the conclusion between us, it was sort of me helping her to focus on what she wanted, because we'll have just one day. And we focused on trust to help them be more efficient or be efficient. And from what she said, I understood that there are people who have been around for a while who know their job super well. And I'm not saying they've been around for a while and they're asleep, They are very, very dynamic, very active, always eager to learn new things and to try new things. But still, you have a group of people who know each other and know their job super well. And you have the new guy who's younger, who comes from another area in the company, and who seems to be going super fast and maybe too fast for them. And I suspect he's getting impatient. So I think that notion of trust, I'm going to meet each one of them soon. I haven't met anyone else besides the two people I mentioned. And so I'll see what's behind that request for work on trust, which can be pretty much everything.
Are they on the same level of management or expertise?
So level of management, no. I have the boss. In the team, we'll have the assistant, and then the 7 others have different responsibilities. And just like any other team, some are on more strategic areas, others less. But overall, the entire team is under pressure because they are directly connected to the strategy of the company. So they really have to deliver. And to finish on your question, Stephanie, it's a good question, because basically each one of them, to simplify, each one of them has a very specific focus, and yet they're a team. So I'm going to see to what extent they are in different lines and connecting once in a while, because in the end, the entire team has to deliver. But maybe each one of them feels like they're responsible for one thing, and they don't want to be how would I say that? Disturbed by the others on their track.
Yeah, it would seem to me that these interviews that you're going to do with everyone is going to reveal a lot. And then that will begin to point you in the direction that you want to move in. When we do that kind of work, sometimes with those interviews beforehand, then we'll take the themes and the patterns that we heard and present them back to the team so that it's a starting point for the conversation rather than trying to surface something in the room itself. So if you have that information, and then you can, we would probably look to what within worldviews or the 6 dimensions framework would be useful in helping to shape that conversation or invite that conversation with them. we've found, like in the past, that we can, if we do that kind of work beforehand and present the themes and the patterns, then we can talk about issues, but we can also talk about opportunities. And if we can put the issues in front of the team, then we have more of an opportunity within that time frame to orient them more appreciatively or more positively towards the future that they want to be creating together. My 2 cents worth.
Yeah.
And I wonder, building on that, sometimes going into things like this, there's this sense of how different and how far apart everybody is, where when you actually do surface things, when they start to realize actually how close they are, sorry, it actually opens up possibilities and more of a willingness to, I have no idea what's going on over there. Sorry. It opens, they become more open to engage with each other in a more productive way versus being dug in on how they feel.
Lorraine, we've definitely noticed this when Messy May happened. One of the other directors and I drove around the country visiting everyone personally, and rather than intentionally doing interviews, though, we just had lots of wine and lots of talk. But we did hear, you know, we heard common things, and like I'm now thinking, listening to what Kerry and Kathy were just saying, like, oh, I wish I'd taken more notes each time we stopped with someone, you know. But there definitely are themes, and we can go back and revisit them, and a lot of the members have said that they do want to do that. So I think that's a really great tip, to go in with a bit more intention than just wine.
Lorraine, I don't sense that there's necessarily conflict here to attend to, but one thing I'm wondering about is the existing team, not the new person, but the existing team. Is there a bit of sort of stuck in the status quo, and the new person is sort of saying, you know, let's disrupt this long-standing way we do things, that maybe with a little disruption there could be some more efficiencies gained, and some, is that correct?
It's a little bit more complicated than that. Efficiency is something that the boss is after, and I suspect that it's because everyone has too much to do. I've heard that they have a problem with priorities. They want to do everything and they don't finish anything. Also because, and it will not be in the room, so I might not deal with that, but they have a lot of, they are given directions from people they cannot say no to. And those people might change directions or just give up on something they got them started on. So they end up not finishing everything they prioritize. And I said it's more complicated because it's not just that younger, newer person who is willing to go fast. In the team, it looks like not everyone agrees on what going fast means. So I will know more when I meet with them, but and I don't think there is conflict, but I can feel tension when they don't want to show tension. So like they're all saying, you know, I love my job, I love my team, it's great, but, or it's weird, or why did he say that? So
And one more quick question that emerged then: where does loyalty land? Am I loyal to my unit and my team, or am I loyal to this team? Or are there dual loyalties here that are creating some tension?
good question.
Another question that comes to mind for me is how well do they know each other? Because some, teams work together for years, and at the end you realize that they don't know much about one another. And so maybe it would be worth spending a bit of time on that. Getting to know each other differently, and certainly an exploration of worldviews, could help with that.
It's a question I've been wondering, and I don't know the answer. And typically, I don't know if you ask them, what's the hobby that your colleague has talked about for years. I don't know if they know the answer already or not. And I'm thinking that it would be probably beginning of the day would be nice to go in that direction if necessary, if they don't know each other well. That I don't know yet. I suspect it's a company where people, most of them stay, so they move, they change countries, they change directions, they change subsidiaries, branches, whatever department. But it's a huge family, and so I wouldn't, and it's very comfortable to share, that you're a big music fan or whatever, you love cats or whatever, and so I would suspect that they know each other's lives pretty well. But again, maybe not to the same extent for everyone. Plus, yeah, something I didn't mention is at least a third of the 9, which I think is not that bad, was not born in France. I think it might be even 4. And so everyone has an experience in another country or another language, which also
Lorraine,
helps.
I'm also just wondering, oh, sorry. Was someone
No,
else speaking?
no, I was finishing.
A proverb just popped to mind that Michelle and I use in our community building workshops, which was go slow to go fast. And I was just wondering if an intentional pause, when there is pressure on and you need efficiency, everyone's paddling, and maybe just to pause, regroup, and kind of go, okay, where are we? We need to breathe for a moment. And that kind of slowing things down. Once you've got those, ducks in a row, then you tend to go faster.
Good point. Thanks.
Yeah, we use that frequently as well. It would seem to me in what you're describing, Lorraine, that worldviews and worldview intelligence has a real potential for what you're doing. And especially when you're talking about 9 people who live in different countries, who have different worldview influences. We find over and over again that when we do that history exercise with our clients, that they discover something that they didn't know, no matter if they're new working together, or when we started the work with Black Hills Energy and we did that history exercise, the chief human resource officer stood up and went, I've been working with my colleague for 20 years and I just learned something about him that I didn't know before, and that will positively influence our working relationship going forward. So, and we've also found that even when people have been initially hesitant about that exploration, that they've have seen the value in doing it, especially after they've shared the conversations or the influences. So.
Yeah, I like that actually. I'm hoping when I start the day, I would like to do something that creates sort of a spark where they cannot look at the others the way they used to, even the day before. So that's my intention, and I'm going to use that kind of exercises. I don't know which one yet, obviously, but that's the intention exactly. Say, oh, I just didn't know that about that person, and hopefully more than one, and it actually changes the way they look at them. If I do that, I'm good for the day.
And we would love to hear what you did and how it works.
I will tell you everything.
Sweet.
One more thing from the information you shared, Lorraine. It seems that they probably need some team alignment on what is a priority. Especially, the boss probably has a good idea of what she feels is a priority, and But you also mentioned that they seem to be working on a lot of things and never finishing anything. So obviously there's a real issue there, especially if you have people from the outside always coming in and resetting priorities on their own personal agenda and so on. So, you know, they may be a bit lost on, you know, what is it that they're supposed to really be completing and doing. And maybe an exploration of that, you know, what is a priority could be helpful for the team.
It could also be interesting to look at what efficiency means for everyone.
Great. Well, thanks. Lots of ideas.
Very good. I just wanted to remind us all that I am recording the session. So if there's something that you feel is confidential that you don't want shared more broadly, we can edit the video to edit some things out. Just noting confidentiality. There's about 90 people, I think, on this distribution list at the moment from all over. I trust every single one of them. Just
Yeah, I don't think you could figure out who that team is, so I guess it's not a problem. I mean, if you hear something that you realize could give a hint of who they are, but I don't think it.
yeah, no.
You'll find that, so it's fine with me.
All right.
Plus,
great.
I mean, I love each and every of my clients, and all of them are very specific, and
Yes.
yet I can say that you have probably heard, you know, a similar story before, and so yeah, it's fine. Thanks.
Okay, Lorraine. Are you good? Can we move on to the second?
It's great with me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Great questions and insights.
Dee, you want to tell us a bit more about the topic, the situation you brought earlier?
Yeah. First, I just want to share with you this great new book that I've recently purchased. Good
Well,
to go.
honestly, I want to hear back from you guys. You know, what it does to you, what you think, what you like, what you
Happy
don't
to.
like. Yeah. Thank you very much, G. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah, so there's and thank you for the reminder, Kathy, about the recording and confidentiality, because it was through court proceedings, and so there's a lot that I'm actually not allowed to say. But apart from that, the kind of where we are now, it's similar to what Lorraine was saying. Actually, I think there's trust stuff that's going on within the members who are still with us. And for your benefit, we call them members, it's staff. Like on paper, we're all staff. But yeah, we're not a cooperative, we're a next stage organization. So we use the word member. So I think that some of the trust stuff, and I'll be happy for you to jump in with anything you can think of, Micelle, is particularly in the month of May, of people being suspicious of each other. Like, are you a mole? Are you telling them who left stuff? Like, can I trust you? And there was that kind of, because so many of them had been approached to leave as well. And so that was why the face-to-face catch-ups were really good, because we could kind of respond and answer to a lot of that. And I think with the thinking through a worldview kind of lens, what I can see now from the conversations we did have, that was only the tip of the iceberg, literally, is that we could continue to explore now, not worrying about that kind of what happened in the court, that can be in the past, but from now, with those members who are still here, what is your reality? And how can we kind of find those shared or common goals for the future? What do they look like? How can we co-create what we need? So, and most of them are speaking like that now as well. They're like, we've got this great opportunity. We can do whatever we want. We're throwing our coaching model in the air. We're going to recreate it. And so they're speaking like that, but there's still this little bit of, oh, what did she just say? Oh, is she going to tell them like this, or he or she, you know? So there's still just a little bit of, I think it's trust, and it could just be that it needs to take time. Is there anything you'd add to that, Micelle? Any key things?
No, I think you've probably hit the nail on the head. I just think it was that it was such a disturbance that it rocked everybody, and people get the lack of, people didn't know who they could trust. They didn't know who was staying and who was going and what was going on, and because it came so suddenly and out of the blue, people are still trying to process it a month down the track. Yeah.
Maybe some questions from us to help better understand the situation and the issues and challenges.
I will answer as much as I legally can.
Yeah. I don't know, Dee, if I have a question so much as just more, and it doesn't necessarily mean advice, but story is one of the things that I found when there is conflict in a team, and I'm not trying to project or make assumptions, is if we can move the conversation away from about the person to their worldview, or how are they seeing the situation, it opens up a far greater understanding of each other. I did some work with a team a while back, and there was an enormous amount of conflict in this team, and a lot of the anger got focused on a single person. And so he said, let's stop talking about her and begin to understand how she sees her job, because and it turned out she was actually doing her job in the way her supervisor had told her to do it, but everybody else didn't like it that being done that way. It had to do with time cards and things. And the supervisor was telling other people on the team they didn't have to pay attention to time cards. And so the team had these mixed messages with different worldviews. And once that all became visible, they could quit attacking this person and begin to say, well, what's going on with our team here, where we all have these varying understandings, and they're confusing because the team leader is creating the confusion, and what's up with his worldview. That so anyway, that's happened a few times where let's get out of the person conversation and into our sort of a worldview conversation, you know.
And we've had something similar, Jerry, that, well, it was the team leader of a particular piece of work, like important compliance work for a registration needs to be done by next week. So it should have been started last November. They were some of the ones that left, and they'd just done nothing. They just wanted us to fail or something. I don't know. But anyway, when we regrouped and said, shit, who can help, and pulled this quick team together, there was that shift, and that was really cool, because there was lots of swear words and about different people and that kind of thing. And then it was like, no, actually, we have not got time for this. We haven't got time for this. What is it that we need to do? What is in our scope to do by that time, and who else might we need, and so we had to kind of really look at it from the situation, and I think because a lot of things like that have happened so urgently, it has helped really push members towards that going high, like no, like we've got stuff to do, we've got to move on, and it kind of has maybe accidentally is not a good word, pushed people towards that view anyway, which is good. Some of us still have a little bit of a bitch though.
Maybe fortuitously is a good word, but
Yeah, good.
I feel like you and Michelle, you probably already know all this stuff anyway, but I'm just going to offer out the naming the situation, like being open and honest that there's still some lack of trust because of the situation that you've all experienced. And also like, oh, my heart goes out to you for what you've had to experience in the last month or so. It's an incredibly challenging situation. And then like, thank you for coming here and sharing your story with us too. So naming the situation, inviting people to share their concerns and their questions, and then pointing them, like has already happened, towards the path forward and what are the opportunities now. And then I also feel like an invitation to either like be fully in or leave. Maybe there might still be some people who want to leave or need to leave. And so those are just off the top of my head, just thoughts for both of you.
Thanks, Kathy. I like that, because we have had the discussion about like there's a couple of them. Why are they even still here? We know they're going to go. We're like, why are they here? And I think having that discussion first around like the naming the situation, naming the reality, or encouraging people to name their own reality of what it is, to then have something to kind of say, well, if that's your reality, why are you here? Rather than just asking them bluntly, what are you here for? So yeah, I like that. It gives it a little bit of a bit of shape, I guess, rather than just a blunt question. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in bringing the elephant into the room. I tend to have the ability as the engaged facilitator. I can often bring the elephant into the room in a way that if somebody was involved couldn't, because I am the objective person that brings it in and theoretically is there to create the safe space. But I also often will say to them, this is the opportunity, because the reason we are here today, is XYZ. And if if we are unable to, if we as a group are unable to create that space to work through this stuff, this is the last opportunity to have this conversation, because we're moving forward, and moving forward looks like this. But one thing that I have done before with a group, it was a board that was struggling with an influx of new members, sitting with long-term founding members that had been on for 20 years and all that comes with that. I actually asked them to leave, everybody to leave the room. We did a visioning exercise of what we wanted it to be and what they were working towards, and then I asked them to commit to not speaking at all. I gave them, I can't remember whether it was 5 minutes or 7 minutes or something like that. They could roam, but that they would have been, and to not talk to each other, but to just take a moment to decide who they intended to be, and whether they were prepared to reconnect with this new vision that had been co-created. And it was enough of it was a bit of a I don't think they didn't expect that. But I absolutely saw a shift come back into the space. And that's not to say that everything was perfect moving forward, but for the purpose that we were there, it created just an energy that was distinctly different and more productive. more open than when they had first come into the room. And it forced them to take individual responsibility for their role moving forward.
Thanks, Carrie. I like that a lot. I can see where that could be useful.
I am not really sure that I would want to force anybody, actually. This word, it doesn't sit well with me. And I also firmly believe, and this is my worldview, and only mine, that you need to honor the past and in order to close it ecologically. And so I would tend to design a session whereby that past can be honored in what it was, what it brought, how it brought me there, what did I learn from it, how did I feel being, in that team at that time, so that it can be laid down. And the new reality can actually emerge in a more, I would say, yes, ecological is the word that it springs to mind, but in a manner that is not going to be forced, but is going to be more natural. I mean, that would be the way I would go about it. And I would revisit, worldviews as well, regarding what I am happy to let go moving forward from all of the things that I have learned from the past and from the situation that has developed recently.
Thank you, Christine. And we certainly do work with emergence and, look at those edges and what is it that we can do moving forward. But I really like that question. The last one you just said, what am I happy to let go of from the past?
Yes.
I really like that a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I saw that Victoria is having trouble with her microphone, and maybe you want to try now, Victoria, if you have something that you would want to add to help Dee and Michelle.
Oh,
No, we cannot hear you.
might be a setting issue. The two things come to mind, Dee, also, if I may. One is attention to some healing at some point in time. That we sometimes have a tendency to just go on. Well, I kind of got this done now, resolved, we can move on. But Kathy and I did some work with an organization that 10 years later, they're still carrying tension from something that had happened with a previous director. And the thing that came out of it was they had healing to do. They'd carried this for a long time. And the other thing that I just want to share out is something that came through my email the other day, was this issue of safe space. And a person had put out the notion that he stopped using the phrase safe space, that you can create a low risk space, but you can't create an entirely safe space. And that in fact, by promising or saying that you can, you actually might create problems for yourself. The analogy he used was a car. You can never create 100% safe car, but you can create a car that really minimizes the risk of any harm to you should you be in a bad car accident of some kind. And so sometimes Kathy and I have used safe enough space, but I kind of like the low risk idea also. So I just put that out there.
Yeah, thank you. And that has actually come up about safe space. You know, people who have been a little bit suspicious or unsure, they're like, what does safe space look like for me anyway? So that's definitely been there. So I like that, Jerry. Thank you.
And just thinking, Dee, that intersects really well with trauma-informed community development as well. Yeah. That
Yeah.
it can never be 100% safe.
So we've kind of looked at honoring the past, and then what we've just talked about is really around the present, right? How do we create safe space to deal with the present? So for me, there's almost a forward-looking conversation as well, which goes back to the not losing. It's connected, I think, a little bit to honoring the past, but it's like, and I've cheated. I went back to the work that was done with an IB client that I brought Jerry and Kathy in on, because there was a lot of tension, low trust, and that sort of stuff. So I just looked at the questions that were asked there. But for me, there's something on like, how do we build on our successes? Like, we've been successful up till now. Like, yes, this has happened, but we've achieved X. So now how do we take it to the next level? So that's part of it. And then the other one is, and then moving forward, like, what do the tough conversations look like when there is a conversation that needs to be had? What does that look like? How can we proactively attend to that, even if we aren't present to the fact that there is a tough conversation to be had? I don't know if that even makes sense, but
it definitely does, Kerry. I'd already kind of decided tomorrow afternoon at a particular meeting. I've heard rumbles around this little meeting from other people. And so when they join, I'm just going to put the elephant in the room out there and just go, look, these are the rumblings that I've heard. How do we want to have these conversations? We don't want them rumbling around in the background. Let's not do that again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If I can just add something, it just reminded me of a discussion I had on forgiveness. And one of the things that was said is, people are responsible of what they do and what they say, but I am responsible on what I do with that. What do I do with that? So am I going to be a victim for, the rest of my life, or am I going to have hatred and resentment on and on and on, and or am I just going to, take on, be responsible for how I react to this, and maybe make it an opportunity to move forward and build something that is going to be great for the future.
Thanks, Stefan. That word forgiveness just hit me. Because we've been talking about healing, we've been talking about this is grieving, we've been talking about relational, and that's the first time someone said the word forgiveness. I was like, what? Yeah, thank you for that. I feel like I just had a worldview counseling session. That was amazing. Like, it's 20 past midnight. No, I'm good to go. No, thank you all. That was really good. Really good.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. And Kathy and Jerry, whoever wants to go next to maybe we have a couple more things on the agenda that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, and I feel like I don't necessarily want to keep people too much longer. That was fantastic. Thanks, Lorraine and Dee and Michelle, for putting forth your situations, because I think it helps us all kind of understand better how we can apply worldviews and worldview intelligence to what we're up to. So much appreciated. We did talk about the possibility of, or we did talk about how do we continue to strengthen and build momentum for this community of practice. And out of the last call, there were a couple of things that had come up. One was around creating a charter, and Carrie actually offered to participate in doing that to sort of understand the nature and the work of this group. And another is around having people co-host so that it, maybe isn't just Jerry and me and Stefan and Nancy. And there could be other, ideas as well. And we still have some discussion going on about the virtual platform, but our marketing web guy is still working on our website stuff. And so it's there, but it's on the back burner. But we hope to have a virtual meeting space, communication space before too long in the next few months. So open for ideas, thoughts, conversations about building and growing momentum for this community of practice.
The exercise that we just went through, to me, is potentially one of the most valuable, because one thing that I've always struggled with, and Jerry and Kathy are aware of this, is being able to see the different applications. So once I've experienced them personally myself, co-facilitating, then I have a confidence to then facilitate myself. So being in this kind of a conversation where you can actually see the application is tremendously helpful.
Maybe another way also would be to mobilize members of the community if we want to have an experiment, actually, to experiment something that we want to dig further in. And so, we could have a place where we can appeal to members of the community at a certain date, a certain time, and explore together.
Christine, would that sort of be in the nature of worldview explorations, which we had on the agenda? I was I think we were thinking it would either be intervisioning or worldview explorations, but when we were talking about real-time worldview explorations, and we had some ideas around how do I hold my center and compassion when someone's worldview on a matter important to me is different than my own, or when I'm triggered, how do I know if I should respond or walk away, or when someone wants to quote unquote burn the house down, which it sounds like the situation that Dee and Micelle offered to us. How do I work with that or deal with that? Is that the kind of thing you were thinking, or is it something different than worldview?
But it could be that, and it's for me, it's more. I mean, what you have suggested for me, it's posture, and also some tips. Okay, and that's part of the exploration. Or probably what I see as well is worldviews are so intrinsic to how we function that you will find this topic of reconciling, or actually sensing each other's worldviews in a lot of practices, and I think they would be really interesting to see how these fit together, and I think it's really interesting to to think about that. And for me, this is the way I learn, I build bridges between practices, and to experiment a practice using the worldview lenses, or to experiment worldviews using another practice lens. It could be really interesting.
Yeah, great ideas. Thank you. Any other thoughts?
I wonder, just on the back of what Christine said, I'm thinking of like our ABCD stuff, Michelle, that we might have, ABCD in First Nations, ABCD in faith-based communities, ABCD in, different areas. And I don't know with Worldview, because that's kind of across all of them, right? But I'm just wondering if it might show up differently in different spaces. Yeah, I don't know. Don't know. I have to ponder that.
Well, it also seems to me that not everybody who's part of this community of practice knows a lot about ABCD. And so maybe there's some opportunity to kind of share in where you see the intersections for that at some point.
Well, that's definitely been a thought of Michelle's and mine, is Worldview and ABCD. But I was thinking more like that was the example of in different spaces. But what does Worldview Intelligence look like in schools? Worldview Intelligence in faith-based communities? Worldview Intelligence in, and does it show up differently in those spaces? Because there's slight variations in those same examples with ABCD. Like I'm in San Diego in October at an Interpride conference with a colleague, and where we've developed, based on a lot of his work and some of mine, queer community building. And that's kind of ABCD in the LGBTQI community. So yeah, just wondering if Worldview shows up in different ways.
It's a good question.
Thank you for your question, Dean. It's a question that Kathy and I have held for a couple of years now, and we've had a few times when we've been able to bring Worldview Intelligence into like a school where we worked with seniors and in a high school. We worked with at-risk Native American youth, and that's been really quite interesting. We actually gave a presentation to 7th graders one time on Worldview, and it was quite impactful. So we had some experience at that level, but we've also carried this question about worldviews and in faith communities, and we've tried off and on to work with a couple of different seminaries here, but we know one professor brings worldviews into her class in a seminary all of the time. And so I think that there are some folks out there dabbling, including us, and we'd certainly haven't, and we've had quite an ongoing conversation with school counselors, Minnesota school counselors, about bringing worldviews to training to school counselors. And so I think that there is this range of potential applications out there, and it would certainly be interesting to take any one of them or all or many of them and dive more deeply into application, implication, and so on. But it's sometimes I drive Kathy crazy with all, well, let's do this, let's run here and let's run there and let's run there,
You have any volunteers to host the next community of practice call? Or co-host, not host on your own, obviously.
I'll co-host with somebody.
Lorraine, were you about to volunteer too?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, always.
All right, we'll set that up. We'll figure that out. We don't have
Okay.
a date yet, so
Yeah, well, obviously depends on the dates, but
right. Well, I think maybe a next step is for Jerry, Stefan, Nancy, and I to invite the two of you into a conversation, and then we'll see of the four of us who steps out of hosting and create space and the opportunity to really decide purpose of the next call as well. That's fantastic.
cool, thanks.
So then I don't know, Jerry or Stefan, sort of where you are in this, but I'm kind of feeling like it might be a good time to do a checkout. And kind of going back to sort of some standards for reliable standards for checkout is, especially after hearing the intervisioning sessions, I kind of want to go to, so what's in your heart as we close our call today?
I'll say joy.
Connection. Good to be reconnected and to make new connections.
Gratitude. Hopefully y'all can hear me.
Yes.
Thanks for allowing me to basically lurk today. Since I couldn't enjoy the engage in the vocal conversation, but it was really a beautiful experience to watch and hear the back and forth and the questions to allow Lorraine, Dee, and Micelle to have some clarity around their situations. I think that was beautiful. Thank you.
Connection and gratitude. Happy to be in 5 countries at the same time.
I'll pick up the piece. Another step towards collective healing. It's like an onion, right? And hopefully one day the courts will allow me to tell you everything, because I'm an open book and God, I want to tell everyone everything. But yeah, it's another step. So, and in gratitude to all of you. Peace back.
Thanks, Dean. You finished it off with my word. I've been sitting here thinking it was like gratitude, and then you go ingratitude at the end. So it just sounds like Aussies only know the word gratitude. So I'm going to now have to change my word. I mean, obviously I'm always grateful, but I think hopeful is probably another another feeling that I'm holding in my heart at the moment. Yeah. For a whole lot of things that are happening here in Australia at the moment.
Well, I would say my heart is full for sure. And I feel energized and invigorated by seeing all 8 of you here on my screen in 5 countries. And I'm just also grateful that you all made the time to come and be with us this morning, afternoon, evening.
So Kathy and Victoria and I are going to be on a call tomorrow morning to talk about a possible project here in Minnesota to attend to something that Minnesota has been talking about ever since I've lived here 40 years. which is sort of the rural urban divide, it's called. Some of you maybe have that existing in your own areas. And the note I just made to myself is it's always framed up as a problem to solve, this division. What if we framed it up as a potential to release, a liberation instead of a problem solution? And so I wrote those notes down here as I was listening to all of this conversation this morning. And maybe that's how we frame up what we might want to offer is, worldview intelligence approach to releasing potential instead of problem solving, because then we'll be talking about another 40 years otherwise if we're still stuck problem solving. Peace back.
I was going to say grateful, but now I've also decided to change my word. I would say that I feel very joyful, and I feel more alive to have met you all in diversity. Thank you.
Excellent. I believe that is everyone. So again, just like, thank you for your time. And probably the next call will be in about 3 months, 2-3 months. And we'll be back to you. I'll send the recording out. I'll send links out to the AI Worldview conversations, and Lorraine and Carrie will be in touch. All right.
Thanks,
for now.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good day,
Thanks,
afternoon,
everyone.
sleep, everyone.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Take care.
Bye.